Hey yo, it's your boy SANe. How you guys doing? So this is Oakcliff Beach number 35. Me and Chad had a really dope ass conversation. Everything from journaling, identity, and freaking deep diving in biology. It was amazing. You guys should have a blast when you're checking it out. Also, give us a follow at D-SANe8 and also Izuzu Rodeo. That's on Twitter and IG. And go ahead and follow that YouTube, man, and hit that subscribe button. There's a lot of cool things that I'm gonna have coming your way in 2021. I want you to be able to tap into the full Izuzu Rodeo variety stream. Well, here we go. Number 35. Chad Weiske. Ah, look at that. I already fucked it up. God damn it. God damn it. Chad Weiske. How you
Busting out of the gates.
Yeah, man. Like, how the hell do you have that complete conversation about it? Then fuck up. You still fuck up. And that lets you know, man. That's what humans are good for. That's like their main hobby. Fucking up is their specialty.
That's right, man.
But how are you? And please introduce yourself for the listeners.
Cool. Yeah. Well, my name's Chad Weiske. I do music as something that's been the most consistent activity in my life. Um, yeah, I've been recently getting into like doing a lot of like more technical like sound designing, modular synthesis stuff, and then in the second half of this year, looked more into like video synthesis and how that all works. So I was never like a camera handler, but after learning about some of this video synthesis stuff and just like the abstract visual techniques like video feedback. I mean, there's obviously video synthesizer modules that you can use, have them sitting like right on your desk. I mean, there's it's definitely a rabbit hole, for me, especially this year. There's just been a lot of free time on my hands, but yeah, man, anything audio visual creative, I love it.
Did you do all the work for your recent project?
No, I guess I had a good friend. I've known this guy for um 20 years. He goes by Saint Finnegan. I can, if there's any like content, I can drop like his handle for his socials and stuff. But I've known this guy since like elementary school. He came through
Mm-hmm.
town. He had this really nice Sony, really nice lens set. And he's like, dude, do you want to shoot music videos and stuff? And then all of a sudden, like, it's just, we had a weekend. It's just like boom, 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 20-minute shooting session, 4 hours of editing. And like, that's just the benefit of being able to have like a working, rapport and like a language, with people you've known for a little while and stuff. I mean, we were just
Yeah.
able to work really quick. So yeah, I mean, I've never done a music video before. I mean, it was so off the cuff, but I mean, I guess if it if it if it looks nice, I mean, that just goes to show how far like editing and colorizing and stuff is in post and stuff. But yeah, so a lot of like my most recent video posts, I've had help, but I mean, yeah, I can share links of like little things, or I'm kind of messing around with like animating something that moves to sound. But yeah, I'm getting there as far as that's all concerned. So, but yeah, a
Dude,
lot of my recent projects have been collabs.
that definitely share that with me because I'm moving in the area of doing that as well. Because I mean, it's like why not? If
Yeah,
you can do it, then do it. And side note, not even a side note, still touching in on those collab projects because it really captured my eye. I'm trying to think. It's the one where it's the song that it's like spoken word on music, but it starts off and it's like you're in this vat. You're in this vat of a blue liquid and you're like
yeah.
getting ready to be born. It's like it really looks sexy. I like that.
Thank you, man. Yeah, that was something so that's a 5-parter, right? And that's a 7-minute runtime video, but it's 5 little like spoken word things that I recorded. I mean, I did that actually probably 3 years ago, the audio, and then it
Hmm.
just sat around. I wasn't able to release it because I guess whoever I'm distributing through, they're like, this ain't music. So it just sat on my it just sat on my hard drive disk and stuff. But a lot of, I mean, like I said, like the guy heard it and he's like, man, this kind of speaks to me in a different way. And so yeah, I mean, he was like, Let's pick this up too." And so the that opening scene is the last thing that we wound up shooting for that little project. But that we all did that in like one day. I mean, you can see how like as that video progresses, like the sun starts to, become higher in the
Yeah.
sky in the shooting situation. It's because we edited it in like reverse order of like that same day. So I mean, it just goes to show like how quickly we just busted that out.
What's
So
crazy about that is if you would never mention that, never would have noticed it. It's that thing where like you get on stage and you mess up, unless you
yeah,
let someone know. Like I
yeah,
didn't notice that, but it's crazy. Now I want to go look at other videos and see if I can pull that kind of crap out.
right. Yeah, like it opens and it's like it's at night and it's in a pool, right? So, and
Hmm.
then I mean the last one is kind of right when the sun's starting to get behind some trees and indirect light and stuff. But yeah, one I guess I don't know. I'll drop the little Easter egg. So obviously it's spoken word, right?
Yeah.
And what we were thinking, it's like I'm like I don't want to lip sync to this in the video. So we're like, what can we do? And I'm like, how about since it's spoken word, we'll have my mouth be preoccupied in every situation. So it's like I'm underwater in the first one. I can't speak
Mm.
underwater. I guess there's the one where I've got like leaf blowers in my face and stuff. It's like you can't coordinate my mouth. And then there's the dentist scene where my mouth's getting operated on and stuff. So it's like my mouth's always preoccupied.
That's cool. And then well actually my mom kind of went on a tangent because I've seen a
Yeah.
couple artists do the dentist scene. I just want to know out of curiosity, can you just walk into your dentist and say, hey, I want to film this, and they kind of give you the nod or the not?
That is, I mean, like I said, this was all one day. That was totally a movie magic situation.
Ah,
We set that up. We turned off all the lights in a room. I got like a mic stand. I got like a LED light hanging over me and stuff. That's it.
so that's movie magic
Yeah.
is a
Yep.
blast.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Let's see now. Have
the
you
dental tools. I'm actually sitting here looking at them because I mean, what else are you going to use dental tools for prop other than props? So yeah, we went. I don't know why they sell that stuff at Target, but yeah, we went and just bought that to make it real. But beyond that, like yeah, it was all just let's shoot here, edit it. I mean, yeah.
do you see yourself going into doing maybe possibly skits or even further, maybe shows or movies in the future?
I would love that. I throughout high school, I did so there's like debate in high school, right? Well, at those
Hmm.
competitions, they also have like non-debate events where you would have like memorized pieces that were no longer than 10 minutes, but so it's not necessarily acting. There's no costumes. You wear a suit and then you have like it's very like human body storytelling, you know what I mean? And you pop into certain characters, you have like certain blocking, that you can kind of incorporate. And um and so I did that all 4 years of high school. And that was the most like acting kind of thing that I've ever done. But
Hmm.
I love the idea of like, yeah, getting into a character and like telling a story. And yeah, that would be something where it's like, where do you kind of start though? But I would love to start doing that.
Dude, you just pick up your camera, you write down an idea that you want to do, and you just go. I remember when
Yeah.
we were out there in UNT, there's a couple of skits that are probably a little cringe for me now to look back on. I always have this trope of I like dying in the movies that I do. It's just I don't know why I like doing that. I really just like I want a death scene every time I do a
Yeah.
movie. Um, but there was one, and I remember it. We were just I think there was a competition, and they gave us a suggestion what you do, and then you just sit there and you make it, and we did it all in one day. And the cool part was because my brother, he went upstairs to edit, and then I was downstairs making the music for it, and it just felt cool because You get to blend all your. I think that's what really gets it so crazy and hyped up for me. Is just taking all the shit that you know and then blending it together. Like I get, it's like fun. It's like everything comes to full fruition. It comes full circle. I love that. I love it when it does that. But I just say, grab your camera, man. Shit, it could be something simple. I want some Kool-Aid, and you can just film some erratic story of how you got to make that cup of Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Yeah, just I mean the art of like just camera angles and like how you actually, juxtapose shots in the edit and stuff. I mean, that's I'm maybe I'm learning it a little bit backwards if like, like the stereotypical, actor that kind of winds up, aging out of his roles and he wants to direct his own things. I mean, I've always loved like watching movies with like the commentary and yeah, man, it's just funny to like be on camera sometimes, but
Hmm.
it's also it should be, you should be able to kind of lose yourself in the moment and stuff. And I would say genuinely, I felt like I kind of lost myself in the moment when I was doing some of the shots. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's just it's an interesting to think about. One of the most interesting interviews with like an actor about this whole like, what it's like to be in front of the camera
Hmm.
is the interview with John Malkovich about the movie of being John Malkovich. And he's sitting there, it's kind of like this in the actor studio kind of thing, and he's like I was so confused as to how I'm going to handle even like playing myself in this movie and stuff. It's like I mean, it's just like turn it up to 10 as far as like, you know taking the spotlight, you know what I mean? It's I don't know, I mean, it's I don't know, it's interesting being on camera as a living being, I guess. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but like just like thinking about, you know, creating a duplicate of you. It's like I think who's the actor who's like, I don't watch any of my movies. I think Johnny Depp is like, I don't
I
watch
thought,
any of my movies.
was it Vin Diesel? I thought Vin Diesel did that crap, or either he said Vin Diesel was big on at one point not making sequels. That was Vin Diesel's thing.
Okay,
Um,
yeah. And then here we go with Fast and the Furious, like 8.
right? Well, that's why they kept changing the damn name. But the I wonder if it's kind of that same thing with some people when it comes to hearing their voice. You know, they'll hear their voice and they're like, "Ew, that's disgusting." And I think it does happen. It does have something to do with just losing yourself. And kind of, it's like this other glance of loving yourself. I forgot what it was. I think it might have been Kanye who was saying that he was like, I love my voice. And as I started doing more podcasting and I heard my voice more than I probably need to hear my voice, I just started kind of falling into it. It's like, you know what? That's that's a that's a damn good voice. And you just accept
Yeah,
it and you just kind
yeah,
of get rolling with it. And I think that's
yeah.
what you probably have to do when you get on screen too. You just go, this is what I am, this is where I am. Now just go all out and don't just losing yourself and showing that energy. That's, I don't know. I think that's where it's at, man. I really love seeing really good performances where, um, like, do you ever watch any theater? Have you ever been to any of those stage plays?
The last one was The Jungle Book. It was in San Antonio. It was so okay.
Wait, it was so okay. Like when you say that, like it was like, do you mean exactly that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'll give you a not so a better one. So
Yeah.
if you ever get a chance to see the Lion King on stage, it is it is a breathtaking sight. Another one, and I say this because one thing also I've learned is that when you go to different performances, they switch things up. But Les Mis is a freaking masterpiece, and like I'm not even trying to. I know a lot of people say that, but it is like there's a scene where I was trying to figure out how they were gonna portray a guy jumping off and committing suicide, and the way that they use all the stage, the lights and everything together, dude, it's amazing. I think what they do is they create a fog, of course, and then they make they make it go completely black and the lights directly on the gentleman, and the way that they do it, it looks like he's falling to his death when really he's just standing on the stage moving his legs, and it's just the coolest shit ever. Not to mention how emotional all the characters get into it. They get deep into their roles, and it's like they read their description and they just hop into. I don't know. I don't know how you. I mean, I won't say I don't know how you do it, because some of the notes that I've like watched, and I did a couple plays when I was younger, and like for me, I really love Jim Carrey, how he does his roles. I know some people find it annoying. I forgot what they call it. It's where you become the character, even outside of the movie and outside of the actual performing it and whatnot. You're in that role throughout that entire time you're doing that movie. You're doing that role, and I always thought that's the way that you would capture the idea of it. You would become that person. You would get it all the way down to the T, their mannerisms and everything. You would be that person. And I think I'm going on a tangent, but I don't
No,
fucking
I
care
totally
because
feel you. It's like when he was playing Andy Kaufman. I think is it
yeah, that's
performance art
it.
that you're trying to
I don't know I don't know what the name of it is, but you know what? I'm
right.
gonna look it up to see what it is because fuck it, man. What is that shit called? Is it performance?
Because
Performance?
performance art is definitely like a big umbrella term where it could be interpretive dance. It could be somebody standing there for the sake of standing there as performance art. So yeah, I wasn't sure if that was, the exact phrase you were.
If I don't, the way I normally try to do it, if I don't find it in the second lookup, I have to keep it moving because
Yeah,
the details you don't need all that. But the premise, because it's a style of acting. I think Shia LaBeouf does it, and I know for a fact fucking Jim Carrey does it because every time he gets on the set, he does it, and he becomes that character to the point where if that character's an asshole, he's he's definitely gonna be that asshole. Let's see what it's
yeah,
called. Um, come on. Unique acting style. Da, 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 da. No, no, no. Movie method. No, 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 no. Okay. Point being,
yeah.
can't find it. But you
It's all
you
good.
get you get what I'm getting at. I guess the real question is, how do you do that for yourself? You know, do you go throughout your entire life and just start picking up things like how do you do that for yourself? How would you do that for yourself? Who is Chad Weiske? There we
Right.
go.
How do
Got
you
it.
how do you best play yourself? Yeah.
I have no idea. I don't I really I would start with who I am now. And I guess it also depends on what story you're trying to tell. That I guess yeah, I guess that also decides like what kind of story you're gonna tell. 'Cause if you're doing reality TV, you're doing reality TV. But if you're yourself from a different time period, you would have to dive into that. I had that problem with it was a piece of music. Me and V's was trying to record it, but I wrote it back in 2012, and I was feeling different ways, and I was trying to dive into it, but I wasn't that same person. It's weird like that. It's weird like that. Have you ever had that problem?
Yeah, elucidate like I guess the specific problem because dude, I'm fraught with problems.
like like when you've recorded music, when have you ever had an instance where you like for instance the pieces you did you ever have a problem reconnecting with yourself when you made those actual pieces?
And understanding where you were then,
Yeah.
totally, totally.
Look for you though. So that's was that the case for you?
So yeah, I mean, I guess what I finally I really started taking recording myself seriously and like producing like tracks probably in like 2014, of like my own stuff. 'Cause I've been in and out
Mm-hmm.
of bands and I've wanted to record the band and stuff. But you know, when it's you sitting there and you're like, okay, I'm gonna record all the instruments myself and it's all me now, you know? About 2014. And I finally released that in like 2018. But yeah, I mean, like I mean, honestly, the one video, like, where I'm standing, like, in among the trees, you know, with, like, my beanie on and stuff and laying in the grass and stuff, that's one of those songs and stuff, and I guess what happened with that is that really wound up, like, sticking with me, and I feel like sometimes I've always wanted to try and, you know, recreate something that was, like, that intense and that, like, rock driven and stuff. I mean, just as, like, a
Mm-hmm.
musical aesthetic. Um, and then yeah, I mean, I think I naturally keep a lot of lyrical content really abstract and flexible to where like I kind of realize like 2 years later I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I created who I am now in like this weird way of like using like these like metaphors or you know or whatever or like you know things kind of start to make more sense in retrospect. I think that's probably something that might ring a little bit more true with me is like looking back at stuff that I've created. I'm like, okay, like it's like yeah, like who you are trying you're creating who you're going to be over the next 5 years, I guess is what I'm kind of realizing. Does that make sense?
It does make sense,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
that's kind of that's kind of the way I stand on it because
Cool.
you're building this portfolio, everything. Because I think back to what was it Equalizer?
Well, yeah, so Equaler was a name where I'm like, should I release solo music under that? But I never did. So yeah, I mean it might have been in artwork, but yeah.
I find myself doing that nowadays because there are a lot of art pieces I've done over the years, and I mean, I think back those pieces, some of them were done maybe 8 years ago, and the crazy part about those pieces is like a lot of people either they don't remember them or they haven't seen them, which gives me this opportunity to take those said pieces, reintroduce them into just a bunch of numerous different things, and it's the same way with music. You're building, like you said, you're building up who you'll be in the next couple of years, and that's kind of how I've started to embrace my story as well, because I mean that's like that's the genuine thing, especially if you're harking on being your genuine version of yourself. You're gonna start building on yourself, and that's the best way to go about it. At least in my eyes, I like to think that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I think it kind of gets to the idea of like authenticity, you know, like how do you decide like when you're like doing yourself justice and stuff? And it's like these are questions where it's like you can kind of get lost in them super easily. But
Yeah,
they for me they linger and I'm slowly getting comfortable with just letting those you know those haunting questions just kind of linger, I guess, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's how like if I ever come to a point where I don't figure it out or something gets really weird, I just have to remember like I don't understand it completely at the moment, and I mean, all you really can do is just kind of keep diving in it until you do, till you find your footing. It's a weird dance, but it's only weird because you haven't experienced it enough, and that's probably where it lays. It's crazy because while we're having this conversation about the authenticity of your real self, it makes me wonder about the whole when you're switching characters, like yeah, when you're switching characters to be in a performance, like the struggle that you might have from losing yourself, like I really wonder about like who is Johnny Depp, like just Johnny Depp, who is the Johnny Depp. When I think about it, I think about Johnny Depp, and I just see all these lavish characters that he was, and how him and Helen. What's her name? What's her name? Helen.
Oh, Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah, like I really think
Yeah.
I don't know why they weren't in a relationship because I mean, they're pretty much like they do the same thing. They're like, well, that's probably what it is. They're like brothers and sisters when it comes to that craft. But
Yeah.
I wonder about the like, who do you ever lose yourself when you're changing characters that many times? Like I always ponder about that.
Hey, Heath Ledger, man. I mean, I like
Mm,
who knows about like the details of that, but I mean, that role probably was his most wild role in his career up until that point. I'll bet. I mean, it was a big, huge blockbuster piece, and I mean, he was that character in it, and and I guess I don't know if a lot of people understand that he died not during because they finished that movie, they finished shooting it, right? There was another movie that was it was on Netflix. I don't know if it's still streaming, but the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus,
mm-hmm.
and that's a movie where Heath Ledger was in, but he actually died during the shooting of that. And funny, kind of small world, Johnny Depp stepped in to finish some of his roles, as well as Jude Law and one what's the guy, Bullseye from Daredevil,
Mm,
um, Colin Farrell.
yeah, I know
So
Colin.
so yeah, so these three guys all kind of helped, you know, flesh out the rest of that movie and stuff. And that was another like really psychologically you know, deep film. Um but yeah, I mean, I think of course, the we're not as elastic as we always would like to be. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah.
I would bet that yeah, we have the ability to totally lose yourself, you know? I mean, look at all these child actors and actresses, you know what I mean? And that, there's plenty of stories there, you know. It's you gotta
Look at
have
Shia
like some
LaBeouf.
sort of, yeah, you gotta have like a constitution and stuff, you know, and you gotta be able to bounce back like Shia LaBeouf has done, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and there was so Jordan Peterson touches down on this. He always says if you have like some kind of trauma, one of the best things you can do, and I start telling this to people a lot. If you can't afford therapy or counseling, sit down and really just write down what's going on with you and tell the stories and just write it down so you can understand it multiple times. But in a sense, that's basically what Shia LaBeouf did, especially when he made Honey Boy. He sat down and he wrote down every single little thing that, yeah, that pretty much like kind of he wrote out his life and identified the problems or the things that basically traumatized him to build who he was today. And I would like to think that that helped him, and because I haven't kept up with him as of recent, but I would like to think those things helped him become better because he sat down and wrote down his actual story. And it's just like people need to do that a little bit more often. And I don't know how you teach that because I understand that when it comes to writing something out like that, it's like you see it as a chore, and how do you gotta? I'm trying to figure out how do you advertise. Hey, this will help you. Keep a diary, keep a journal. Do it.
Make journaling sexy again.
Pretty. There you go.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Make
Yeah.
journaling sexy again. But instead, we just use it for Facebook. Honestly, that's
Right.
you gotta get that old school notebook and just get in that mud and just start writing.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of came under attack with the idea of somebody hacking your diary in like the 90s. Remember that? Like, don't read my diary, don't read your sister's diary. You know what I mean?
I I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
That was the little like every TV show that was like an episode back in our back in our damn bro, we're old. But
I
back in
know.
our day, like that was a thing. Like you
It was
had
a
if it was
trope,
the
totally.
90s, yeah, it was a trope. It was a trope. And I think that's great because We got to see a resurgence. I don't. I keep a journal. I'm on and off with it. Like, do you keep a journal?
Yes, I do. Yes.
What kind of things do you journal?
I journal I journal about things that I think I'm sure about recently. I typically would journal about like daily experiences and stuff, and that came to be a little bit too routine, and so it kind of lost its special
Mm.
character as like an activity. But more recently, I've been kind of like, okay, hold on, let me pull back and let me actually, I want to feel like I'm writing a book. So I got one of those like leather bound journals, and
Mm.
I, I'm paying a little bit more attention to like my handwriting through this, activity more recently. Yeah, I guess it's a little bit more, first principles kind of journaling in a way. So it's not like writing my thoughts. It's like I want to be able to catalog what's, you know, I guess a priori deducible. Does that make sense?
I will say that last word. I would have to Google it. Please,
Yeah,
please introduce
yeah.
me to a new word.
Okay, okay. No, so yeah, like so I guess on the second half of my college career, I wound up, thinking I'm like, I want to kind of like I was going for biology, and
Hmm.
I wanted to do something that wasn't so, rigid. I wanted to be able to have like, like a freedom of thought. Like I wanted to have a discipline where there wasn't a whole lot of doctrine, you know? And so
Mm.
and the sciences are very much like that, like I mean, I took I took an oceanography course, and it was so environmentalist. And that's not bad, but it really makes certain questions not okay to ask. And that was something that was very obvious. And it was like that kind of, you know, you're reminded like it's a story. Uh-oh. Hold on. Do I need to mute?
You're good. You're good.
Okay. Okay.
As long as you can hear. Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So but yeah, and yeah, so I wanted to, take some philosophy courses and kind of, round out what was okay to to think about, and so, I wound up getting subjected to like just a lot of like, like if you go to any, like run a Google search, what are the top philosophy books that are, mandatory reading for some, a lot of times like you'll come across, different authors and stuff, and they'll use like a lot of these old phrases, and within like metaphysics, one of them is like what is a priori. So it's basically what you have before like you start in a way. So
Hmm.
like a baby's a priori knowledge would be, for example, well, I exist, right? Like that, I think, therefore I am. So that would like the fact that you are there thinking is already a given. I guess it's kind of like in geometric proofs where you've got your, I forget the word for, what it is like when you start like a geometric proof, but like your givens.
I get you. I get you.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
the like it's basically if you have side A, side B, you can find the hypotenuse. It's
Yes. Yes.
and I think you're talking about Dakar. I think that's
Yep.
Dakar.
Yep.
And it's crazy because when I sit in my when I have the podcast, I I'll keep a notepad just in case like thoughts pop through and I'm trying to put them down so I don't like blurt them out because the ADD does flow. But um but like on the flip side of this tablet, it's literally one. There was a day where I woke up and I started going like, okay, so what matters? And I started writing it down. And I kept going, okay, health. Health matters because if you run out of health, you can't play the game. And then the other one that I started touching on was okay, freedom. If you don't have freedom, you're gonna sacrifice your health to obtain it. And it's just sitting down and playing around with those thoughts to help you figure out what matters to you so you can progress forward. And then not only that, just grasping the spectrum in a whole. Because what was that? There was it's crazy how people have all done these things before us prior to this. And are you familiar, are you big on Marvel comics at all?
Yes, no, absolutely. The idea of like the modern superhero is like this externalization of whatever human condition is, magnified for like the time. I mean, all these Marvel comics, like, is post World War II, like,
Hmm.
archetypes. Big into it. Keep going.
So the part that I want to magnify was the Infinity Stones and how they literally capture every aspect of life. The fact that there's a power stone, and that's the one that just basically amplifies your levels throughout all the rest of the spectrum. But like you sit around and you start going, okay, you got space and time. In the beginning, there's nothing, and the
Yeah.
next thing is you got space and time. So now there's a stone that covers that. Then you start going, well, next within that space, you got all these different elements, and that take care of that. All those different things. Well, you get life. You get life out of that, and you know what life does? Life thinks, consciousness, and it's just the fact that within the fact that in a Marvel comics in a trinket covers everything of the actual full life spectrum, and it's just it's crazy. It's crazy because like it's as with the human experience, we're all trekking down that road trying to enhance this feeling, trying to enhance this experience, and trying to figure it out. And it's just crazy that we're constantly just trying to figure this part out. I it's it's crazy. It's crazy, and
Yeah.
it always gets me going because I sit there. I don't know if you've ever had those moments as a child or just I still do it sometimes now. It's just absurd how that thought can be. But you ever just sit there and look at your hands and you just go, "Oh shit, this is actually happening, right? This is real. This is
Yeah.
now." Like, have you ever had those moments? Like that shit
Of
just blows
course.
your mind sometimes, man.
Yeah.
It's and it's and that's without any in any drugs or marijuana.
Right.
But it's just it's like it just it really makes me just open to just seeing more experiences because I know lately I've been playing around with the whole thought. The only thing that the Infinity Stones doesn't cover is literally the virtual space, and because that's a whole other conversation too. What happens when you can do all of this crap in a virtual space? I like playing around with these thoughts because I don't think they're played around with enough. I think we get so caught up that we don't take a step back to just really just dive into these things that would help us understand what really matter. It's yeah, it just it boggles my mind. It boggles my mind.
Yeah. So like when you're talking about being energized about it, I mean, to me, it's kind of like when you ever pulled the husk off a corn? It
Yes.
seems like, there's so many layers. You know what I mean? Like that's almost exactly how it is. Like you just don't necessarily feel like you stop, but whatever it is that's at the center of that is like this infinity kind of thing, where the fact that if you do choose to engage with this kind of mental activity,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that you do get the energized, I mean, it's a proof that you have the 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 hardware to interface with infinity. And I mean, that's kind of like, I guess where I'm at. Kind of like realizing like you have the hardware to interface with infinity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you because what it's called, if I'm not mistaken, it's called thought experiments.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
I guess what what's the what's the, I don't even say what's the like most randomest or the best one you've had, but I guess let me in on one of your thought experiments. What's one of your thought experiments that just really just took you and made you just go to another plane with it?
Mm. So so I was talking with one of my friends, and I'd always had this idea of creating some sort of timeline. You know what I mean? Like, you hear this random date and you're like, oh, cool, that happened then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, wouldn't it be really cool to just have somewhere to always just really quick go and write that down on like the same thing and have all of those things in order. So I started doing that. And I think one of the biggest reasons why I didn't start much earlier is because I knew how detailed I would have wanted to be about it. So
Mm.
I kind of got lost in like what I thought the undertaking would have amounted to. So anyway, a couple weeks ago, I started this, and I got lost for like 4 days. Um, and so yeah, I mean, I basically now have like 40 pages of, I guess the first third of it is, before humans enter the scene. And then the middle third of it is everything that's kind of up to about around like BC and like ancient Greece. And then like the last third of it is like more like recent post-Renaissance history and stuff.
Mm.
And when you do something like that, like, and you know that you wrote down every single word, and you're like, oh wow, like that's a mass extinction event, or wow, like that's an empire, and this is how they fell, and you understand the historical aspects and context of what kind of world you were thrown into, as you're born. I mean, that's been something that's been very, very heavy, and honestly, I got like really, really choked up, and I kind of started to cry when I was writing about like World War II and like the development of like the atom bomb, you know? And I mean, it's just, and it's like, somebody could like, say like, oh yeah, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. It's this date that is like, it's not a direct experience to a lot of people that are our age. We know it as something that's a black and white film, and
Yeah.
something that maybe the military wrote about. But when you realize like, oh, in the 1700s and the 1800s, they started to really flesh out the table of elements. And then all of a sudden, after some of the last elements were really starting to kind of, you know, find their place on the grand scheme of things in like a chemistry, physics kind of, you know, groundwork, all of a sudden we just wipe millions of people off the planet. And I mean, it was so, I mean, to try and understand World War II is a whole, other topic of, it's, I guess, at the end of the day, like, like I don't know, like we tell ourselves like, we're always like in a state of war, like there's always just one war after another. You've got Korean War, Vietnam War, Cold War, Gulf War, the war in Iraq, Afghanistan, like, whatever's going on in the world as far as like, you know, ultimate conflict. I mean, it what we don't want is a World War III,
Yeah.
no one needs to say that, but at the same time, it's like, how do we manage conflict? Because in a way, that's for me been one thing that's the most consistent throughout human history is like, just the management aspect of conflicts and values, and yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily a thought experiment, but it's definitely been a big, part of the last couple of months, just in this year for sure. I mean, like, I keep saying like 2020 is the vacation that none of us asked for, but
Yeah. The
I,
necessary one.
yeah,
I think it's amazing. that you took the time to scribe such a thing, because it's really easy to get caught up in the now, and the saying of, history repeats itself, and you should know where things start so you can have an understanding of where you are. And it's just, when you so one of the things that really stood out to me when you mentioned the whole, hey, we started flushing out the elements, and then at that same time, then we started basically cracking open those elements and the atoms to basically start our first bombs off. All these things are linked, all these things are connected. I Well, what was your process and source for scribing these things? Did you have a, like, not necessarily an encyclopedia? Like, yeah, how were you traveling through time and history? How are you doing that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the first page is very, very like just mystical. Like it tries to like at least write down some sort of word that can encompass whatever was going on before the Big Bang. And so, I reached back into, some of the, like the deepest, like Judaism, Zoroastrianism, like Hinduism, just the oldest religions of when somebody is totally caught up in like the meditation. Like what's the berry that they get from that activity? And I mean, you have to go there. You have to seek within. And so it starts off there. And then immediately after, I looked at a lot of like quantum physics, just the idea of, you take a second down to like, a billionth. And what
Mhm.
kinds of, like, when people are in like the Hadron Collider, when you collide those, over, what time scale can those subatomic particles exist? Well, so I started kind of filling those in, right after that, right? And I think in like after the second page, I mean, yeah, 4.5 billion years ago, we get the Earth, and then, there's like a lot of like these like mass extinction events when it comes to like bacterial life, when you don't necessarily have, you know, like we know that like we breathe oxygen, plants
Yeah.
breathe CO2, right? So there's these chemical niches that organisms occupy to be able to kind of have a balance in the world that we know today. But if we imagine back to, a pre-life Earth, and then all of a sudden you throw like some sort of, photosynthesizing, cyanobacteria, it doesn't have anything else to kind of reciprocate the biochemical process. So it's like this pendulum that an overall state of the Earth kind of, swings and stuff. And so, I mean, I'd studied biochemistry at UNT. Like I said, that was my primary area of study. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, yeah, a lot of it was through, going through Wikipedia, and then also, just, but you gotta like, balance, and approach it holistically, and make sure that, a lot of these things, can, make sense. Like there must be a logic. Like I don't want to have gaps. You know what I mean? That was one of the biggest things is that made it so, overwhelmingly meticulous. Is like I didn't want the gaps. I wanted to fill it all in. So yeah, I mean, a lot of it, especially through the prehistory ages, like, when we say like the Cretaceous, Jurassic, and Triassic,
Yeah.
periods and stuff. I mean, that's just 50 million years out of 4.5 billion. And so, yeah, I mean, like, after, one of the first max extinctions, then you got like comb jellies and stuff, and like anemones, and just more and more complex life. And and yeah, I mean, like a lot of that just kind of comes from, you know, when I would look at, when you pull up like the genus species of an organism, and you just look at like the taxonomy from like kingdom, phylum, family, order, genus, species, like there's just a lot of logic to that. And so I wouldn't necessarily that, I directly rely on it. And I think that there's like the how different species speciate, you know, is a very mysterious thing, even in modern biology. Like, how do you explain like the difference in chromosome numbers? Like, I mean, that, to me, there's no mechanism in a biology textbook that links, you know, humans to chimps, you know, being our closest common ancestor. But I mean, I think
Yeah.
so. It's like 23andMe, right? That company that like sequences your genome. So we've got
Yeah.
23 pairs. We got 23 pairs of chromosomes. How do chimpanzees have? I think it's 48. They have either one extra pair or one less pair. You know, if you just take away a pair of chromosomes from like a human zygote, it's non-viable. So that's one thing that's, you know, is, you know, a little bit confusing and stuff. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it just comes from, you know, referring to a lot of my college textbooks and and just certain timelines. Like when I was saying the order of the elements as they were discovered, there's there's tables and charts that you can find online of like, you know, who was credited for, you know, the discovery of the element, or, you know, maybe isolating it, because that's not always the same thing. Like when people
Mm.
were smelting iron, you know, they didn't necessarily understand exactly the
What
properties
it
of
was.
the atom. Exactly, but you know, they knew that there was an alchemy to it. So so yeah, I mean, it was very, very multifaceted. And yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of tried to keep it to, you know, the shift in power, the particular like philosophical works that
Hmm.
were published at the time and written about, um and a lot of like, you know, scientific developments, you know, kind of like objective studies that actually caused, you know, material change in, you know, how we deal with our world. You know what I mean? It's to me, you know, a lot of like the science is kind of self like what am I trying to say? Like it stands on its own. You know, just the fact that we can, you know, manipulate something and that it actually works. You know, I mean, therein lies the truth of, you know, whatever you discovered. You know what I mean?
I
So
do. And
yeah.
I really hope you like publish this one day so I can take a look at that. Like it's like, and I say that, but I really like I was joking around with a friend earlier about just journaling and whatever the hell you're journaling. And a guy from the Breakfast Club, Charlemagne. He kept a journal just from seeing a therapist, and then he released it to the public. You know, did all the editing and publication. And it was just a journal that he sold to people. I really would love to see something. I would love to see that because for me, going like I biology was one of those. It was one of those things for me that was just like, I'd rather do physics.
Yeah.
And like I remember it. It was senior year. There was a class I was in. And they threw me in both physics and biology. Where at the school prior to it, I didn't have to take it anymore. It was one of those situations. They was like, you pick one of the sciences that you're interested in, and you keep moving forward and keep throwing advanced in front of it. And so that's kind of the route that I wanted to do. I wanted to stick with physics, understanding that through all of this crap, you need all of this in order for it to all work. You need both of them, chemistry. Yeah, but I was always more a big fan of chemistry and physics. But when you get into biology, because I remember it was something as simple as understanding the cell. You would find out about the different chemicals. What was it? It was some kind of pump. I forgot what it was called. The sodium potassium pump or something along
Yeah,
those lines.
there's that in the neuron, and then also in every cell there's the proton gradient that's across a lot of the membranes. And so
Hmm.
that's to maintain the the interior of one cell's you know, pH balance, right? So they would maintain that in their main membrane. But then also, if you recall, like within mitochondria,
Yeah.
there's the oxidative phosphorylation. that happens in the mitochondria, which, you know, we always say is like the powerhouse of the cell.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, there's like all kinds of things like that. Also, you know, the citric acid cycle, the you know, photosynthesis. I mean, there's all kinds of, you know, biochemical mechanisms that really, yeah, they are overwhelming. Um,
But when you talk about it the way that you do, it it's like the interest grows when you map it out that way. I guess what really, when you're in a classroom and the only thing that your teacher is trying to get you to learn is this is a cow and it's called a Holstein Fraser, or I think that's, yeah, Holstein Fraser, I believe. A dairy cow is called a Holstein Fraser. And when they're doing that and your whole assignment is you got to learn the real biological terms of things and you're not really doing much more than that, you can see how a little disinterest can grow for someone who wants to get a little bit more active in it. And but I will say the crazy part of it that always just got me more interested in and respecting of it was the fact that they're all connected. You gotta have both chemistry and physics happening so you can tell the story of biology. They're all linked. It's crazy about that because like we were talking about earlier with the sodium and stuff, you find out about the chemicals and whatnot in chemistry. You find out the different ways they connect with each other. Um, and then just different actions through physics. Like it's it's not crazy. The point is, it's like I think it's amazing how all of that's interconnected, and I just, yeah, yeah, I'm flabbergasted.
yeah, these disciplines share walls.
You're very versed in this. Have you considered doing something with it outside of just being knowledge with it?
I think that on the horizon there's a wave that is definitely building, and I think I do myself a disservice to not deny that. And I think I'm starting to see that now. I was really disheartened when I graduated and I saw the rates of hire from, you know, people who graduated in my field, and, you know, where they wound up working. You know, like I didn't want to only go and, you know, use my chemistry to do quantitative analysis for a cosmetics
Mm.
company. Like that was one of the biggest things that I saw that was hiring. And I'm like, I mean, that's so cosmetic. You know, like in the
I wanted to call it basic, but I said I would hold back and not do that. No, but
yeah.
I I feel you on that because one of the so one of the cool things is I like that. So in the world of say we're in the future, I see it as one of those things is like what you're doing now, creating the media, connecting with people in that form, you could totally merge those powers together to not only entertain but inform and get someone actually hyped about doing biology. It just, man, it's just like I really I don't know, I guess this is just coming from my old age nowadays. And when I say old age, I mean I'm not really old, but I'm maturing, and it's just I'm recognizing the fact that one of the things that's important is figuring out how to inspire the generations after us. And dude, to be able to fuse all of your talents and to hear your passion for bio, man, you figure out how to fuse that shit together.
Yeah, yeah. No, it, it's definitely exciting. I think, you know, one of the things that I was, you know, I guess as far as like a field to actually kind of go into was kind of using a little bit of graphic design
Hmm.
to create scientific illustrations. You know, that was something that was really interesting. Like the people who create the graphics that are in textbooks,
Yeah.
or, you know, when you actually, you know, if you think about it, if you're, it's like the idea of working in any large business nowadays. Like the data science is big, sure, but the idea of being able to choose what you're measuring and like to come up with metrics, like I guess I see like in one of these, Discord chats, there's, you're talking about like stocks and like, assets and things like that. Like there's a lot of information in the world, and it's like we're really coming to confront how to be discerning and be discretionary with what we do consume as far as information, and how do we use it. That was one of the bigger things too. It's like, I mean, like I just said, we used our science to obliterate a city. So
Yeah.
what we need to be able to pave a way to where it's not profitable to treat cancer anymore. It's more profitable to cure it. And I don't
Mm.
understand how necessarily to do that.
I think it starts with conversation. That way you can
I
connect the
agree.
minds and figure that out. Because I play around with the thought in my head all the time. As a species, as we evolve, the essential reason for evolution is for a species to get better and be able to be within the time that it's in, the time and space that it's in. And what's one of the biggest thing that holds us back as a species currently? This whole price setup situation we've made. Don't get me wrong. I understand that yes, goods cost money. You have to figure out a way to, I don't know, pay for it, but at the same time, we create paying. We create the idea of money. We should be able to essentially move past that. If living is so important, there should be a time where we get to a point where it, hey, you're sick. Oh, that fucking sucks. Let me heal you, because that's what we want. The biggest thing is having people, correct? So it would be ideal to be able to move towards that. I don't know. I play around with that thought. I know some old schooler might say that might be on the lines of socialism and all that crap, but I'd like to think of, I like to think of life as in the, like, tech is the better way, evolving, anything that's making us better in the long run. Like you, it, I just I just my mind grasps that and I start thinking that way because Star Trek, in Star Trek, when you look at that universe that they're in, they're they're past that. They're on another level. Where it's like they made innovation the currency. And I mean, that's what I would like for us to be on. I want us to get to the point where innovation, that's the currency, not trying to figure out, okay, how can I market a vaccine? Like it's that's just, we need to evolve past the dollar. I feel like as a species, that's what's really holding us back.
Yes. Yes. I think right when the quarantine hit back in like mid-March, I think what was one of the bigger things on my mind was the human faculty of valuation, and what we value, and in what order we prioritize our values, and things like that. And I was like, that's a that's it's a, like, I don't know, I felt like that was interesting, but I'm like, why hasn't why don't people talk about this a little bit more, right? And so I'm like, what area is this? And so lo and behold, it would fall into ethics, right?
Yeah.
Like the ethics is, in a lot of people's minds, it's standing at the railroad switch and pulling the lever to save one person or save three people.
Mm.
What do like there's a mother, or there's like, three or maybe 100 people who have done something really bad, make something up. You know, it's it's that it's that placing of value, and like obviously we do that with our, our faith currencies and stuff, and also with our time and with this idea of normal. And so that's one thing that I think at some point I may come around to, more visit in a sober sense. But I think I'm allowing a lot of things to, unravel so that way I can kind of examine the weave, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I I definitely I fall in that same little well, I fall in that parallel, and I I've tried to come up with ways to it's pretty much just like be this and that while at the same time. And what I mean, because I always teeter totter with like just capitalism in general, and I try to figure out some way to justify it in my mind so I can keep moving forward. And I always come up with the idea like the idea of capitalism is just figuring out how to give back to where you can help people, giving them the knowledge, giving them the figuring out something to where you're helping them, and and I don't know. I don't know the answer. I do not know the answer. I know better tech is definitely a good start to the answer. And that's like we were talking about earlier. That's why I want to dabble in those things like the not modules, the just like little apps. They're like Discord. The fact that
Yeah, we were
Discord
talking about
has
bots.
yeah, the fact that those bots are made and you could sit down and make them yourself, you could learn that. And earlier I was talking about just building something selfishly for me and my other homies and stuff. But essentially, you could build something for somebody else. And I know the main goal for a lot of people is to build it so you can get some kind of profit from it, which is a-okay as well. But actually building something to get people more time, get people more space, get them to be able to do the more things that they want to do. It's crazy because I was playing around with that idea the other day. I started doing like random community questions, and I started thinking about how you would like say once you get to a point where you can cram 60 years into 60 minutes, where you could give a person that experience of a whole lifetime within an hour. And I mean, you start there, but what happens when you can also get that down to 15 minutes? It's just I don't think that that's impossible. I think that's with Neuralink about to come out around the corner. I think that kind of stuff is just like we're right there at that. And I'm going on a tech tangent, but yeah, it's just those are the things that that just I want to be a part of. You know, I want to be a part of that because there's so much opportunity in that, so much.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. One of the courses that, kind of stuck with me was I guess the name of the course was Science, Technology, and Society. And
We had that.
one of the things that really, it 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 really did the professor did a great job balancing, between, sobering us up and, getting us high on our own cell phones. He held up his cell phone, he said, "Do we really live in a democracy?" Because he held up his cell phone. He says, "We didn't vote on this."
Mm,
And
mm.
and I mean, the other day I was sitting in a waiting room, and it's like, here's this a doctor's office, the medical industry. That is the archetype of healing, right? In the West, to a large degree. I mean, maybe there's like non-Western, supplements that are, but they're not mainstream. So, but anyway, I'm in a waiting room, and you look around, and everybody's on their phones. Like, what we know is that the human body will naturally just heal itself. We are healers. That's the verb that we do unthought. But what we don't do is we don't. I mean, like we need to make sure that what we're engaged with is actually, something that we're doing willfully. And a lot of times, I think one of the biggest conversations, especially now, is, the idea of, you know I mean, we've probably, what was the Social Dilemma, that documentary? I mean, that frames it in a way where, you know,
Oh yeah,
a lot of people are thinking again about, you know, how we engineer our tech. Because, you know, I mean, you were talking about the idea of the virtual space and how, you know, back to the idea of like the infinity stones, how there's no infinity stone for the virtual space. Well, it's largely probably in part because of how vaporous it is in essence, right? Like there's no rock solid quality.
it isn't, and that's the crazy part about it. It is literally the essence of a thought playground. It's a
Hmm.
sandbox for your fucking thoughts, and
Yeah.
it's crazy. That's that's the and it's like it's so real, but it's not. It's just ah,
Hmm.
it's one of those things where you just you get to that point where you just kind of get stuck, and you have to figure out how to move within that, and because it's like there's that concept where you start questioning if you get to a point in life where you can copy consciousness, and I say copy consciousness, the question would be preserve consciousness and move that consciousness within different places. How do you track that? How would you track that? Like that's the thing. If you crack open the whole ideal of living forever, making it where it's a thing. I know there's the thought process of maybe you don't put your mind in a super awesome computer. Maybe you just figure out how to keep your current computer running and nonstop. That's one way to ensure it. But who's to say that is you, and who's to say that's not a copy of you? Like I don't know how you would grasp that. That's something on the horizon that will continue to boggle my mind. It will. Yeah. It'll continue to boggle my mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's the concept of immortality, it's the concept of transhumanism, and it's the concept of identity. And those things don't fit together for everybody on the planet
Yeah.
yet. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on? I guess. Yeah. What are your thoughts on something that we could agree on that makes it? Because I heard you say yet, but what would be your thoughts on us finding a way to where that actually did work, and we all as a people agreed on? What are your thoughts on that?
Ooh. Um, well, I mean, like, so I mentioned identity, and I mean, I think if you run identity through Google, you know, one of the top 10 results is probably going to be this idea of like identity politics, you know,
Okay. Yeah.
and like, yeah, I would like, yeah, I would imagine that.
The fact of being who or what a person or thing is,
Yeah.
and there's a movie. Um,
Yeah. See, I guess the social science, you know, aspect of the concept of identity is,
mhm.
I mean, that's one thing that, you know, kind of comes up for me. And obviously, you know, there's like, you know, like this like word cloud where you can see like a bunch of like relate, if you type in word cloud with any, you know, word, sometimes that'll kind of help jog, you know, like your brainstorm and creative process and stuff. But
Mm,
yeah, I think this, you know, for a lot of people, the idea of identity, you know, ever since, you know, maybe the 1960s and the 50s, and you know, it's not directly linked to a lot of the, you know, activity of World War II, but it's more the people who knew firsthand World War II. You know, they came back in to the home and they wanted to be able to have, you know, some sort of idea of utopia in the 50s. And then you inevitably had these people rebel, and then that creates the 50s. It's like, I don't want to do my emotions. You know, I don't want to selectively tell the truth, you know? Like I wanna, you know, live my truth. And so you really started to see that live out in public in the world throughout like the 60s. And, you know, obviously you have like the hangover that was maybe the 70s and stuff. And there were people who were, you know, every day. I don't mean to like, you know, cast a shadow or you know, give a value judgment on any decade, but it's interesting in retrospect because, you know, I think there's throughout the I mean, I guess it's going on. I mean, it's 2020. It's, you
Yeah.
know, going on 70 years of us maybe, you know, I mean, I don't know if we're trying to, you know, restructure identity as something that we all can, you know, agree on in the way that identity itself is structured, or if we just are choosing to more creatively engage in the multi-form concept of identity. And and a lot of, you know, I mean, it's funny because this has impacted our laws. I mean, you mentioned Jordan Peterson, and that one of his main things was, you know, he saw what Canada was doing as the idea of like compelling the freedom of speech and you know, regulating what comes out of people's mouths. And I mean, obviously we're right in the middle of like this weird, you know, idea of like cancel culture and you know,
Yeah.
things like that. I mean, it's like it's at some point, you know, there's a we're I get our technology is allowing us to inadvertently shove a lot of things down our own throats that if we just woke up in the morning, made a cup of coffee and went on a walk and left the phone on the charger by the bed, it wouldn't affect us.
That's kind of the so it's crazy because as we proceed, there there will become a time where that phone will no longer exist as a little device by the side of the bed. But as we push towards the singularity, that will become so it'll start off as that watch that's connected to your Google Glass or the Google contacts in your eyes. Then we'll become comfortable to a point where we're like, okay, let's go ahead and get this as maybe because maybe we'll have it in the beginning where it's just jewelry because people there's always going to be that option of do I want to go full out Cybertron or
Right.
Cyborg, or do I want to just keep it where I can just put this on and engage with it that way? But once you start introducing things that enhance the body and allow you to do more things while actually being in that space, you're gonna have that crowd of people. And I always play around with this thought. It's like the future is gonna have where you're gonna like you go to the store right now. You have your autonomous little stops you can go to for cashiers, your droid cashiers. One day you're gonna get it where there's no humans in that store whatsoever. They'll get it to the point where you don't need the human to fix the robot. They'll have another bot doing that. Then you'll have the same thing for if that bot messes up, and so on and so on. And and then while all this is going on, because actually this goes back to the with the idea earlier what you were talking about when you mentioned the cell phone and who decided that. And it's crazy because in some form or fashion capitalism and the ability to have the dollar exist is what helped us decide that. The fact that they have that money to pay for something and decide if it keeps going, that's how they determine. So we voted for it because we paid for it. And
Right.
I think that would be the situation in the future when you'll have people who are on the side of, yeah, man, I rock with the droids. And then you'll have the other side is like, nah, I want to go to the new equivalent of a mom and pop shop, which is this is still ran by humans. And if we have a droid here, maybe it's because that droid's dropping off the product. But hey, this is still human, and that's what it'll become. It'll become that cell of human and droid. who's down. Yeah, that's the new team Apple and everybody else. It'll be Droid, Android still rocking. But Droid and freaking human. That'll be like one of the biggest things for the future. It's crazy because I wanted to ask you about splicing because well with your knowledge on biology, I and then playing around with these social structures, these identity politics, I I I think it's horrible that we're at the point that we are currently in life, just trying to decide what someone else wants to, giving such emphasis on what someone wants to be called or what they want to be, and we can't get a grasp on it as a society to understand it. I don't know exactly what is right or what's not because we're in this thing of freedom trying to figure it out. But just the whole thing of like splicing. I'm joking about it, but you're familiar with furries, and the reason I bring that up is one day we might decide it's okay to, hey, splicing is approved. Come down here and buy yourself a tail. Girls like having tails nowadays. What gets to the point where, you can actually get a growed on tail. And then you got people who want to go. And what if we go to another point after that? And now you got people who have cat ears. And now you got full on cat people. With like you have a problem with that. Like it's just it's like it's crazy that we can't grasp the little stuff yet and figure that out when there's so much more on the spectrum that's going to hit us in the future. And I'm hoping that we understand it so we can just get to the point and go, okay, we've been through this before. I know this is a new type of paint, but we've been through this before, and we're able to do that. It just a boggle. It's another boggle, man. It's another fucking boggle.
And you're saying splicing like splicing DNA and like editing that to where like the organism would have.
Features from another, yeah, like CRISPR.
Gotcha. Right. Yeah, that's it's I guess it's a big stock right now. Like a lot of people are paying attention to it. Um
Yeah.
I guess yeah, it's our dreams writ large. I remember being a kid and like saying like that would be really cool to have like bird wings. You know, not no concept of, you know, this idea of like half man, half animal. Like it's like no concept of that. For some reason, like, girls always wanted to be a mermaid. You know what I mean? It's funny how we have these also, throughout human history, throughout our mythology, right? Um yeah, it's a really interesting concept. I mean, I don't it's like an episode of Black Mirror. I think a lot of people are, really thankful that, that show, resurrected
Yeah.
the whole Twilight Zone genre. Yeah, I saw this one thing. I was scrolling on my Instagram feed, and I think it was Barstool Sports. They
Barstool Sport.
they reposted a video of them. It was like in a passenger seat, and like somebody, whoever was filming, they were like, oh my, they were coming up on like this machine that was walking, and it's one of those MIT robot dogs. Have you seen these?
Mm. Yeah, those things
Y-
are gonna kick our ass.
Yeah, it it so as they pass it, they're tracking it with it in the field of view, and then all of a sudden it stops, and then it tilts up and it recognizes you, and then it tracks you as an object in its camera view.
Mm.
That is really, really weird. And one thing that I think is the highest of highest cautions is when, especially when, we're talking about. I mean, this is very, very supercharged as a topic nowadays and stuff. But just the idea of, defunding the police and things like that. I don't understand what people are projecting to be the structure that would replace that. Because if those robots are $15,000 or $20,000, the cost to train, I think, a police officer will far outprice a robot automated, you know,
Yeah.
policing, um, agent. You know what I mean? Like, just like the idea of agency. Like, do do we realize like what is prepared to
Replace.
take exactly? I mean, do we not? I mean, like just the idea of outfitting those with like a gun that would shoot, rubber bullets. I mean, it's like how many times? I don't know. It's just it's a really it's not impossible to imagine, but I don't think people are thinking about it.
They don't. They emotion driven shit is always what things basically starts off, and I kind of butchered that whole statement. But what I'm saying what I'm getting at is people get wound up with their emotions initially too much. And it's also about the polarity of words and what words you use. I used to be real sloppy with that. And what I mean with that even further is just the whole concept of defunding the police. The another reference would be social distancing. I get, yes, you want a social distance, but it's not exactly the main focus of it. Where it really should be is physical distancing. And when I say that, it's because,
Right.
that's, you don't want to get, we understand it. You don't want to get too close to a person. Social distancing, marketing and media amplifying it that way, created this weird reality that we're in where now I can walk down a staircase and a couple will crunch up in a corner, and it becomes this weird situation. And it's just like, you're like, what? Like, what are we doing
Cringe.
here?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with defunding the police, because I was on one of the sites, I believe it was the actual Black Lives Matter site. And the fact that you call it defunding the police, and then when you click on it, then it has more details. Well, it's just like, really? Why don't you call it reformation, police reformation? And because that's what you guys want it to be, why don't you do that? Start there. Don't go for the hype thing. Go for what it actually is, or what you're trying to do. Because if you're really going to train officers, you're going to need more money. You're going to need more money. I mean, you can't do that. Like, it bothers me because I get where people are trying to come from, but it doesn't seem like they've exactly executed the thought properly, or played around with it to see what it would actually do. And like, you make a good point, because I never thought about them replacing officers with those, the well, I guess, so I can't say the autonomous, well, no, the autonomous dogs. Because I was playing around with the thought process of, like, when people do warrants and stuff, one cool way to go about that is, why don't you do the warrant initially with a drone or something, or some kind of droid, to to de-escalate the situation, and have some other way to, I don't know, cap to immobilize the person, so that they can, you know limit the amount of loss of life. Because when I start thinking about issues like the Breonna Taylor case, I started going, like, the main biggest issue is that there was a loss of life. So therefore, it brings me back to what I was saying earlier. It's like the evolution of these things require better tech, but we get caught up in the fine wires of it, and we need to take a step back and realize what the initial problem was, and then address it. But it's crazy. It's crazy. It's okay. I guess what I'm getting at is crazy, and the only thing I can really think to do at that point is to figure out how to go and make those bots yourself. And then, that's, it's like, you got to get out there and make the shit that you want to see the world become. Like, if you want the world to be a better place, you start with trying to make the things that make the world a better place. And tangent again, but it's just one of those things, man. It it bothers me, and it just puts me in that situation where I have to go figure it out, because
Yeah.
I know for a fact we all are in this boat together, and we wanna see us all succeed. Like majority of us want that. Majority of us want that.
Right. No, for sure. I mean, I think right when you started, going down that route, like you were talking about, the idea of things being emotionally driven, and one of the most interesting contrasts in when you're talking about the words that you use is the contrast between reaction and a response.
Mm,
And
mm.
and yeah, like a response to me, it would imply that there's at least some kind of logic that's being adhered to. A reaction doesn't feel well thought out, and there's a lot of yeah, the the consequence in people's behavior when you're talking about the couple in the stairwell, jumping across, the space to maintain some sort of safe distance from your physical body seems to be a little bit more of a reaction based upon some sort of program rather than a response as with that keeps with how we understand this virus to actually be more commonly transmitted, which is just keeping a safe distance. But you can still look people in the eye and you can still talk to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many cringe moments, man. I I have to chuckle at them when they happen because it's just one of those things that just it's a laugh, man. I love walking down a hall. You see a person from afar, you kind of give them a wave, and it just triggers them to run somewhere.
Yeah.
It is entertaining as hell to watch, but it's just to see that it's another thing that kind of bothers you because all the things else that can get created from that, just that fear, that who knows what could get created from that. And I don't know. I really I mean, because I get it. I get it. I have asthma. So part of me is like, well, if I get this crap, there's a good chance I might get the croak. But, it's just like I'm not I'm not out here just fretting about it, man. Just because I was actually joking about it earlier. I'm gonna Naruto the hell out of it, and I'm gonna be confident. Then I'm gonna confidently get through it. I'm gonna what's that? I'm gonna pride the hell through it. I'm gonna fucking make it. It's just like it's just there's mindsets, and it's it's just it brings me back to just like those perspectives on things because I wonder on like just when it comes to just bettering things, a person's perspective on what could better something because I know there's a divide between like conservatives and liberals. We want to keep things kind of the same because we know that this will work, but it's like they don't keep up with the regard of the new things being added to the equations. And I know when it comes to people who want to evolve.
You still there?
Hey, sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, the last word that I heard was evolve, and I think you were talking about. I don't know if the recording's still rolling, but you were
It
talking
is.
about like the orthodoxy in these ideologies and like how they're blind to these new additions into the equation, right?
Yeah, and I think I went on a tangent and I noticed that there was like no response at one point. So I was like, oh shit, I hope it didn't do the thing because these bots, they still fuck up. And Craig, good old Craig loves to do that. I don't know why it does that. And that's also another reason why I'm really big on the maybe I should make my own because like I don't understand why it does that. It doesn't after like so many hours when you're having a conversation, it just decides to drop out and it just decides to just do its own thing and I kind of want to get on top of that and have something for myself because I notice where it's an error and if I'm going to change something, I got to do it myself. That's kind of how it goes. But I
Yeah.
just went on a tangent about like just the whole idea of just wondering if you're right about like what the community or what the human race needs, and then something along the lines of pushing ideas and not pushing your ideas, because it's just I don't want to be a person that pushes ideas, but at the same time it's like as a person, as you decide what you feel is correct for yourself, you're going to just naturally do that. It comes with the whole plate of pasta. That's not a saying, but you know, it just that's the thing. It's a
It is
thing.
now.
It is.
Yeah.
It comes with the plate of pasta.
Right. No, I mean, you can't, I mean, no person in the world is going to like release a song if they didn't think that it was worth listening to, regardless of how many plays it gets or whatever. You know, you don't take on an action if you don't feel, you know, justified in some small way, you know? I mean, you shift your stature because you might be uncomfortable sitting that way. You know,
Yeah.
you gotta keep moving, you know? So yeah, I mean, as far as, you know, when it comes to, you know, pushing ideas and pushing the biggest ideas, you know, I mean, this is, you know, marketing agencies would probably take and twist this and you know validate any campaign, but yeah, I mean you need to be able to feel okay about, you know, pushing things that you genuinely believe in and you think, you know, would benefit more people. um yeah, I mean, like it's like the idea of like, you know, gentlemen don't wash their hands, therefore, you know, obstetricians, you know, would deliver babies without washing their hands. Like, you can't do that. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
need to be able to share good hygiene practices, you know, because I mean those all start out as ideas, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those ideas get based off of something we consider like a fact or some kind of form of truth. We've decided that if you don't wash your hands, that you put yourself at risk for becoming ill or spreading illness to other people, and you don't want to do that. And it's just like you I don't know, it's just I think the betterment of people should be the thing you base your truths and stuff on. And I it's crazy because I have a friend who, for her, the line of it is you should base your truths on promoting freedom. Like whatever gives people more freedom, that's where your line is, and that's the way you should have it. Because we were going back and forth on the whole mask situation, and like I don't post most of the time I don't like to talk about. Well, it's not necessarily I don't like to talk about it, but I know that every single soul is talking about the pandemic and it's just. But I don't even need to do this tangent. But it's natural. It's what we're dealing with. It's real life. So fuck it. I talk about it sometimes. Um, but like just the mask thing. There's one side of it where it's wear a mask because there have been studies that show this does help. This does help. Make it a mandate because as a government, we want to try to promote as much life as we can because if there's no people, there's no government. That's a thought process. On the flip side, there's the response, or is it the reaction? Is that a reaction or a response? I wonder. But the response or reaction of, hey, freedom, giving us a choice, letting us pick what we want to do, even if it hurts us. That's our freedom, and that's the only thing. Like I get both sides, but I get it, but it's just it's it's like I don't know how you sit at that point. You have to decide what really matters to you. It kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. Does your health matter or does your freedom matter more? I think the person decides that. The individual person decides that, and I don't really know where you go with that. Outside of you kind of leave it as an option. I just I think that those two things kind of that's what happens. You get you get people who decide what matters this way and what matters the other way.
Yeah, it's difficult because, you know, even, you know, if we add more heat to the equation, I mean, there's people that are jokingly like, saying like, oh, why don't we just have a civil war already? Like I've got friends who like come back from the army and stuff, and they're maybe a little bit more habituated to the most extreme violence.
Yeah.
And they'll just kind of say this off the cuff and stuff. It's like nobody in their right mind will actually like, a lot of these things that are trending in news, well, they're not the things that will cause people to, suit up. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but at the same time, like I've got friends who, they were like, oh my gosh, all the ammos, like stores can't keep ammo in stock. But I don't understand. It's 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 I don't want to call it fear mongering, because that's not a direct. I don't really see it that way. But it's people's fear reactions that are causing them to go buy all the toilet paper, buy all the
Yeah.
bullets, or whatever. And it's over things that, if we calm down, we realize like, there's no mass water shortage. That would be big. What we're talking about are, people's rights. And as soon as that infringes on people's right to food, water, and shelter,
Yeah.
I think the state of society is going to stay pretty cool. We're always going to hit full screen on whatever we're paying attention to, and all things in relative um, gravity. You know what I mean? It's not always the end of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another other thing. Everyone always likes to think it's the end of the world. That's just probably a person that's not embracing the whole full thought process of evolution, if you ask me. But it's yeah, it's a I don't know, man. It's a weird world in space, because like it's like while this is going on, because one of my friends, he's always telling me about how you know this is going on, but there's always like another story in the background that you should be paying attention to. And like currently, my biggest thing, like I always keep telling people, is like crypto. Crap. Hold on. Actually, saw it drop this time. The color at the top of my voice, it turned red, and I was like, only like it's like cryptocurrency and crypto art and all those type of things. That's kind of the listen to, because I always hear everyone say, "Oh, I'm trying to figure out what to invest in, what to get a leg up in society," and this we're at this age, and you need to more people need to know about it, and it's just other things that I mean
Yeah.
it's like they matter, but there's more.
Right. Right. I think when we're talking about the mainstream conversation is just the the implication that these things have a hierarchy, and and I think people to understand that, I think was from cable television, radio, and everything was pretty much, obviously the 80s, news networks would cover whatever they covered and stuff. We know, like, it's just kind of like a new normal. To me, this kind of is directly hinged into what do we value, and almost, maybe what do we take for talking about, what other people are doing as endangering to us. And I think, that's the main conversation with, the whole mask idea is, yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I see both sides, and I'm also, I'm not, a frequent subway rider in New York City. I haven't flown on an airplane. I guess this world really, changed a lot of people's, normal as far as how they physically interact with people. So, it's hard to have a well-formed opinion, but I mean, when I do go out in public, I'll wear a mask, and if I'm in an area where I feel like there's a little bit more foot traffic, I might wear a long sleeve and not touch the doorknob and pull my sleeve over my hand. You know what I mean? Just like I don't want to deal with it. It's kind of, it's for the peace of mind is more about it. I don't think that the virus is all over everything like a film that I can't see. But at the
Yeah.
same time, if I play hot lava, it I win. You know what I mean? And it's like, if we
Yeah.
can game it, then I think it's a really easy way for everybody to get on board.
Yeah. I just it's crazy because I know there are a ton of people who look at it as a when once you start introducing like religion into certain things like this,
Yeah.
I it starts going, "Eh, like I get what you're trying to do, but like is it like it's weird because I know there's a conversation out there about it being a mark of the beast. There's a
Yeah.
conversation out there about the actual virus. Is the virus or is it the cure to the virus or whichever? It's a patent on it that has 666 in it. Like there's like cause I every now and then I'll have a person on who's telling me about the conspiracies that are like live, and typically what happens is because I got to tell everyone, I'm not married to anything. I like to I like to hear the perspectives so I can know what's up. Like when I watch the news, I watch both news channels because I want to hear what people have to think on things. I want to know. So like it's like I'm not ruling it out, but at the same time it's like what's just a coincidence. And the other thing for me to do is just kind of just sit back and watch things because when the vaccine comes out, I mean, I'm not going to be running to go get it first in line. I'm going to roller coaster effect that. I'm going to watch and see who turns into a zombie or not. You know, it's just, it's just,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just, I don't know. And it's interesting. I will say that's one thing I am damn sure about a lot of this shit. I am, I am just interested as fuck to just watch the perspectives of the human race and see how they just start throwing things on the wall and seeing what sticks or falsely seeing what sticks on that wall. It's an interesting thing. The human experience is really interesting, and I really want to see what it does in the like next 100 years.
Yeah. Yeah. That curiosity of where this goes is, I don't think that it's a fear of death that's driving, a lot of this, storing your consciousness in a machine so that way you can live forever. I think that it's genuine
Yeah.
curiosity for next, I mean, I don't think most people are afraid of death. I think more people are curious tomorrow.
I think as you mature, you get
Yeah.
over your death. I trying to think. For me, I dropped death back when I was a kid because I used to climb buildings downtown, and there was a time I used to climb buildings in fucking Converse, the
Oh,
Chuck
dude.
Taylor, and and like there's what's that? It was the classic one. You know the Reunion Tower,
Yeah, which
the
I here
the
I'll
ball.
oh
It's the one that has the ball, like it looks like a microphone.
yep.
So
Yeah,
they
downtown.
have
Yeah.
they have an elevator shaft. The footing, you can access it and you can look straight down to the bottom floor and see it. And there's an elevator shaft where it's like the elevator's outside, so you can see the back. It's I forgot what they call the kind of elevator. It's not ones that it's outside where
Yeah.
you can see it. Well, on that white that and my dumbass at the time was doing that, and it was like a slip away, and I would not be here today and have these conversations. It's but it was one of those things too where you kind of just go like it helps you understand just toying around with life, and then don't promote
Right.
this for anyone.
Yeah.
Stupid. Yeah.
We're we're in a we're actually okay. We great character. This is a to be in. Okay, back in the story.
But it's just moments like that. There was and I believe if I'm trying to remember correctly, in order to get to it, you had to not only climb the stairs, but there was like incomplete parts in the flooring. But there was like this Crown Plaza downtown before they installed the still being worked on. And what actually shut down those adventures was there was a custodian man, and he caught us when we go to the roof of the building, and we were up there on the roof of the building, and the man came up there and he's like, "Hey, what are you kids doing, basically?" And I could call the cops, and you guys could be in trouble for breaking and entering, and he let us go. And I looked at that as like, all right, maybe I should stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just moments like that, and not fearing death, and then just like you said, the curiosity of things. Like I don't like, because if I could experience everything and be done, that would be the thing. Like I just the experience and like just to watch it. Like that would be that's cool. Like it also brings me back to that whole idea with being able to experience the minutes. Are you familiar with Rick and
Yes,
Morty?
I totally binged that when I saw that it was on Hulu, and
Well,
yeah.
there's a particular episode. I don't remember what the little game they were playing. There was that blips and chips. There was a person. There was a person that you get to be, and when you play the game, it feels like person. You experience that person's whole entire life, and then when it's done and the person dies, you wake up and you're like, holy shit, I am me again. Holy shit, I am me again. And I just I wonder when we get to that day and that time where you can link up to something, see a person's whole experience, be that like bro, change, and you get to live that person's life out. And you can do it in 30 minutes. It's around the corner and it's only a minute. I want that. I Because something like make a simulation for people who think masks are stupid, or make a simulation of the scenes work with masks are not enabled. and maybe then you can encourage people to do maybe smarter options because then you have a way to actually show them. I can't wait to see that shit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, same vein, you could do something where it's like they're the king of everybody, and like we'll see how long. If you really want to, we'll make you king of the world in the simulation. Have fun. It's like, dude, when you're playing The Sims, yeah, you'll get up and you'll go eat, and then you'll The Sims or like, and it's like, at some point, you want to a NPC. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Dude, it's a it's an interesting world that's on the horizon, and I don't know how much time you like have for normally I exit out about like 2 hour mark, but like I'm having this has been great actually. I've really enjoyed this. Um, First thing you should probably tell where they can find your stuff, and yeah, tell people where you can find your content, man.
This has been really cool. I've been having a really good time. Also, like it's interesting, man. I mean, I think you're doing a really cool thing. I mean, you're not a like opinionated. You know what I mean? Like it's a genuine exploration. I can tell. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just it's natural. It's cool. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, I mean, I guess my first and last name. That's kind of what I use for my handle everywhere. So I don't know if there's like some sort of text or whatever, but just at CHADWEISKE. Instagram,
Cool.
music on Spotify that I've released, Apple Music, I guess, YouTube Music, Amazon. I mean, it's all on the place. And I think I'm most active on Instagram though. It's fun to create a video and post it there.
Yeah,
I think TikTok too, but I don't. I mean, I don't understand it yet. I think I've got like one little.
kind of,
That thing.
dude. I've left it at I've left it at So are you familiar with like the older guys that would wear the jerseys and think they're still cool, and then they would hang out with the little kids?
Like sports jerseys and like wear
Yeah,
them like normal shirts.
yeah. Like it was. So there was a time back in the day, like back in the
Yeah,
day, there was a time where people would wear jerseys and it was cool, and then it became not cool, and they continued. Some people continued to wear jerseys, and they hung out with the younger kids thinking they were hip. I think it's my old age, and also just all the other shit that I'm doing. Like I look at TikTok, do that shit on Instagram. If it ever gets to the point where I'm big enough, I'd rather it be someone else sees my shit and they put it on the TikTok themselves. And I, of course, do what the fuck you want, because I got a homie who that platform, and like he does a lot with it, and it's really cool. But I just I just nah, man. I'm getting old. I'm well, yeah. I guess I could say I'm getting old. And this is the only. There's so much more. There's so much more, dude. There's a new social platform where it's all audio based. And you don't post words or anything. It's literally a talk space. And like if I'm gonna try some new shit out,
that's
I'm gonna
cool.
try that out. Not something that's a duplicated version of Vine or like I'm not knocking it, but at the same time I am knocking it.
Right.
Yeah, it's a it's a thing.
I mean, yeah, totally. That's kind of what I was trying to say about TikTok is like it's exhausting keeping up with all these things. I think that do you know what the name of that audio based platform is called?
It's in my in the Discord
Okay.
server. I have it linked
Okay.
there. I'll
Yeah.
grab it and I'll send you it